On Asia Down Under today, in celebration of Conservation Day, a Japanese ranger protecting the Kiwis, and a civil engineering student who's helping build homes with earth. Kia ora and welcome to Asia Down Under. New Zealand is known internationally for protecting its nature whilst making the most of it. Nowhere is that philosophy more evident than in Zealandia, the award-winning conservation sanctuary just outside Wellington. Jasmine Pujji takes us there.
As the world becomes more urban, we mustn't protect the biodiversity that was there in abundance before mankind arrived.
It's the realisation of a dream. I mean, it's been really exciting to actually see it all work.
Is it good?
People who is involved with this organisation are just passionate about this place, and you can see it, you can feel it.
They call it Zealandia. Tucked away in a valley behind Wellington's city centre is a 250-hectare piece of council-owned land, the country's first mainland wildlife sanctuary. Zealandia recently opened a state-of-the-art visitor centre and exhibition space designed to take visitors on a journey of exploration into the unique natural history of this land and its earliest inhabitants. For the person in charge, involved from the start, all of this is just the beginning.
Our long-term goal is 500-year journey. It's a 500-year vision to restore this piece of forest to pre-human state as much as possible. Zealandia is a world's first eco-sanctuary within an urban environment, and here we showcase New Zealand natural heritage. We're not just here to restore this piece of forest, but we want to be telling a New Zealand conservation story. We want New Zealand and the world to know about what New Zealand was and what we could do in the future and how we can achieve that.
If you go back to the way it was before Maori and our Europeans arrived, that valley would have been alive with birdsong. It would have had beautiful standing native trees and, you know, the understanding I have is that even when the Europeans arrived and anchored in our harbour, the noise was so loud from birdsong in the harbour that it was hard for them to hear themselves think. That is the vision, that it would be great to see it go back to, where kiwi, tuatara, all the native birds that were common in Wellington at the time would be able to be easily seen and, if not seen, heard as the native bush regenerates in that part of our city.
It's important for us as Kiwis to know what our heritage is, to know what we so nearly lost and what we have lost. I mean, there are a lot of threatened species in New Zealand, both plants and animals, that if we don't put the resources into them, they will disappear. That's not only of national significance, but it's also internationally important because our species here, our plants and animals, are unique in the world.
Unique, but by the end of last century, fast becoming extinct. The Karori Valley was an early casualty of the bush clearing ways of European settlers. Felled of its towering trees and bushland, the valley soon became a workhorse for progress with 2 dams and a gold mine. It took 100 years for a group of visionaries led by Jim Lynch to dream of taking this valley back in time. In 1995, they got their chance. The site was retired from service as the city's main water supply and leased to the newly formed Karori Sanctuary Trust. With a team of passionate advocates on board, work began. First up, raising $2 million to build a predator-proof fence 8 kilometres long. Specially designed to keep out rats, stoats, possums and the like, the fence was an expensive experiment untried anywhere on mainland New Zealand.
There were a lot of people who doubted it, and in fact, trying to get funding for the fence was quite problematic, and there were a lot of sceptics out there, so it did make it quite difficult for those who were doing the fundraising. They convinced people enough, and we actually, as you can see, we've got the fence up now, but it nearly didn't happen. keeps all the nasties out. Well, not all of them, but most of them. All the mammalian pests that have become a problem for New Zealand wildlife and plants. It's built so that the climbers can't climb in and they can't dig in, and excludes animals as small as a mouse.
Inside the fence was a piece of land the size of 2 New Zealand dairy farms. Eradicating the pest and rodent population was no easy feat. It took lots of traps, tons of bait and round-the-clock monitoring for 18 months. By January 2000, the valley was declared pest-free and careful reintroduction of 15 endangered species began. In the last decade, rarely seen species like Maud Island frog, giant weta, tuatara, North Island saddleback and hihi have been released and continue to thrive in the valley. Some are making a return to the mainland for the first time in 200 years.
Actually being pest-free and able to release the smallest kiwi back onto the mainland when it had been extinct for over 100 years was pretty special. I mean, it's iconic for us as Kiwis.
We have found the first tuatara baby, which is the first on the mainland for over 200 years. And so exciting. People say that, you know, I'm the mother of the tuatara.
Zealandia's mix of conservation and tourism has been recognised by numerous awards and accolades, but its real achievement could be allowing visitors from all over New Zealand and the world to get up close and personal with a range of bird and wildlife that wouldn't otherwise exist. But the dream, articulated by founder Jim Lynch, was never just about conservation.
He wants to combine in terms of tourism, education, conservation, and community engagement into a model that is self-sustaining.
And if we need to be able to stand on our own feet, and I think not only will we be able to say, look, we succeeded ecologically, but gosh, if we can succeed economically, then we really are a model for other projects elsewhere in New Zealand and in the world.
Can you just write it down? That needs to be in the new branding.
Yep. But how to afford all of this? With conservation and operating costs alone a cool $2 million a year, Zealandia needed a radical plan for the future, one to draw in lots of visitors.
They went away and did the work and came back and said what we need is a visitor centre, somewhere where no matter what the weather, no matter what the time of day, you could turn up and be given the same experience as if you were able to walk through the sanctuary. The visitor centre was going to, of course, be very expensive. It was going to be interactive. It would really tell the story of New Zealand and of that valley the way it was hundreds of years ago and the way it would be in 500 years.
The visitor centre finally opened this year. Costing $17 million, it's by far the sanctuary's biggest and riskiest venture to date. Raising this kind of money, especially in tough economic times, required smart business brains and a lot of persuasion.
We managed to secure funding at the end. We have a grant from the government recognising the significance of this place in terms of the conservation and education work. And then the City Council also come to the party and gave us a interest-free loan. And the rest of the money come from private sector. So it's very much of a private, public and community partnership to make this visitor centre a reality.